Welcome back. We're getting inside the last sort of half an hour of this conversation that we're having. Transnet once again in focus. This time we're looking at the pipelines business, which carries through its 3,800 kilometer network of pipelines the bulk of the fuels that you and I consume, either in our cars, our trucks, and even our planes. And we're busy having this conversation because it is a very important cog in the wheel of the South African economy. And we've been getting questions from the floor, and our panel has been doing their best to field some of those questions. Let's go to Tyrone Kopman now, who's on table number 13 for his question. Tyrone?
Good morning, Peter, and good morning to the panel and fellow guests. My question is for Mr. Moodley this morning. I'd like to inquire what advice Mr. Lennie Moodley can give an engineering specialist piping company to engage with Transnet Pipelines to do and add value to your organization in terms of maintenance work and getting involved in some of your day-to-day running of your pipelines. And I am aware that you have a portal on the National Treasury for tenders, but is there any other way that we can maybe engage with the maintenance, emergency breakdowns, and that type of business? Thank you.
Okay.
Just in terms of the maintenance aspect of it, we have an in-house maintenance team because the maintenance on our pipelines are pretty specialized. It's not just kind of general sort of maintenance. Both in our pump stations and the pipelines. Also, if you look at from a servitude point of view, there are servitude rights that we need to adhere to. So we don't allow anybody onto those things. They need to apply for rights to get onto those servitudes, because you can imagine how safety critical it is in terms of people executing maintenance. I think he had indicated something about the portal, and we do come out with tenders for other types of work. But generally, the more specialized work that we do, it's all done in-house because the skills are grown in-house. Those skills are not readily available out in the marketplace. So in terms of our engineers and artisans, although they're qualified, they come into our system and they spend about 2 years before we allow them to work on their own. So it's a pretty specialized environment. But I think, in terms of sort of general maintenance around sort of civils and all of those things you can only access them via the tender process which we publish.
We've talked a lot about maintenance, but I'm just wondering, how vulnerable are you to sabotage, and how do you manage that?
It's something that we are exposed to, and therefore I had indicated around the servitudes that we're very particular around who we allow onto those servitudes. But the other aspect is we're a national key point as well because of the strategic importance of that asset. Some of the things that we do, we have patrols around our pipelines. People drive along the pipelines to check if there's any activity along it. We actually also fly the pipelines by helicopter to make sure that there's no activity happening on those lines. From time to time, you do get people that try to access it rather than sabotage from a theft point of view. And I think that's a very important thing for the public to understand. It's really critical, and it's a very dangerous operation. And I think you'd probably have heard years ago when people tried to tap the line in Nigeria, it caused an explosion and many people died, I think over 200. So we have a very close relationship with the communities along the pipeline. So all of our CSI initiatives and all of that. So we hope that the communities along the pipeline are our eyes as well. And we do educate them around the dangers of, tapping on the line and all of that. So we have a whole program that we go out there to educate people along the pipeline, schools that are close to it, so that, sometimes people think it's easy just to access it without any dangers, but it's a seriously dangerous thing if you try and tap into the pipeline.
All right. Some of it goes via rail. Are people still stealing sleepers, or is that stopped?
It's reduced.
Yeah.
We've also improved security a lot. But again, it is also a joint effort with the communities around the railway reserves. So we also again encourage the communities to be the eyes and ears of the nation, because these assets are for moving South Africa more than they are for Transnet.
Okay, so Sinopec, they've bought 75% of Chevron. Does that affect us in any way?
No, it does not really change anything as far as the operations of the petroleum industry in South Africa. It's just a change of shareholder. Yes, in terms of like how you approach investment going forward, companies differ. Sinopec being a company coming from BRICS, like a member, it might have a different outlook as far as they look at South Africa. They might approach it differently. You must remember that Sinopec is a huge company. They own several refineries in China. I think they produce probably 3 million barrels per day, of products, which is far outweigh the total that we produce in South Africa. This is a significant player that...
So they might bring some technologies here.
Of course, because, look, like I'm saying, their approach, it's a government-owned company, which is very successful. So their approach is completely different from a typical private, company. So typically, other private players might not invest in a country like ourselves, especially if you have a company that own a crude, oil refinery. Yeah. But this is a different company that look at the industry differently. Yeah. So we don't know. But as far as the operation, it changes nothing. You can't uproot the refinery where it is, the depots and the service station, and they'll still remain where they are. So we just look forward, to work with this new shareholder.
Can the Sasols of this world compete with these big companies, and some of them regard as white monopoly capital?
Look, Sasol plays in its own space because it uses a different source of energy to produce crude or its own oil. It uses coal. And of course, it does operate also within a sort of protected environment because though its cost structure is different from those that import crude, its selling price is the same as the crude price. But for them to compete, I think they were provided with enough leeway to compete. And Sasol has become a global company. It's all over the world. So, but to compete locally, you can't because I think there's limited supply of coal. Eskom also needs coal for our electricity, so you can't take all coal and make petrol with it.
Okay. All right. Table number 5, we'll find V. Ramchanda.
Good morning, everyone. It's actually Baloshni Ramchandar, and I'm from Total South Africa. My question is, how will the port strategy impact the leases in the island, and how will this affect the security of supply?
Okay, so...
I think, if I may, I think the port strategy is to try and, yes, indeed, protect the security of supply, but equally to also try and give access to the players who couldn't in that area. So we are wanting to serve both the players who've always been there, but equally to give space for those who are trying to get into, particularly those who are trying to import or export, through Island View. So, and we are working with the industry, to say that how can we do this? Because we cannot be in a space where capacity is hoarded, and yet there are people wanting to move fuels. So that engagement with the industry is there, and we are basically trying to implement as per, the codes coming from both energy, transport as our regulating ministry, and those arms of government. But security of supply indeed being central to it.
Okay. We're going to take another quick break, and after that I'm going to ask a question about how do we manage and make sure supply gets to the most rural parts of our country. That's coming up after this.